I am live. 4 minutes late, but still live. Welcome everyone to a Sunday night edition of the Chill Stream, which we haven't done in a while because it's been so busy. And it's been this past week was like retarded busy. I actually drove to Virginia 7 times in 8 days. The only time I didn't drive to Virginia was last Monday when I did the show. So and I went Saturday. Thankfully, I did not have to leave the state of New Jersey. So I decided, what the fuck, let me do a show tonight. So, and I hastily threw it together, and so here we are. Anyway, yeah, it was super fucking busy. Like, from Peterborough Airport to Virginia and back, for me, is 500 miles a day. And I did that 7 times in a week. That's 3,500 miles in a fucking week. And my brain is fucking turned to mush. It's not easy to do because you have to concentrate the whole time. You are not allowed to not do, you're not allowed to not pay attention, or else you end up in a fucking ditch. Anyway, I'm back from Trenton. What do we got? There's a bunch of stuff going on. Some of it's interesting, some of it not so interesting. What am I going to start with? Well, I'm going to start with how my observation that the narrative is going to shift, or is the current narrative is this: Trump is a pedo, Trump is a pedophile. And a racist and a felon, and we hate him. Except, of course, they're going to pitch that people to whom for 2 things: MAGA base, demoralize them, and make them feel sad, give them a sad, and then the other part is to excite the predators, who are looking at easy targets. I'm guessing they're going to do this shit all winter, because I don't think anything's going to happen in the winter. Brown people don't like doing violence in the winter. They're not going to come out to do anything now. It's fucking freezing. So they'll just lay the groundwork, and then springtime comes, they'll find some excuse to kick off. And of course, none of these people are going to be able to get to Trump or the Republicans or whatever, but they'll be able to get to you, your local supermarket manager, or some fucking poor schlub who's just trying to fucking make his way through the fucking day. People are going to decide, oh, he's a MAGA person, and they're gonna get the pedo or whatever the fuck. And I noticed this, and they just fucking, man, they cranked that shit up. They turned the knob up to fucking 11. You know what I mean? Pictures like this, which used to be super hard to find on Twitter, which used to be impossible. Like, they would scrub this shit all the time. These pop up everywhere now, everywhere. And, with the imprimatur of, one of them even said, like, the House investigation, the blah, 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 blah. One of the things about these series of photos is this: I did a little green line analysis for you, and you can clearly see that in this photo, Epstein is the weaker of the two. You know what I mean? That Trump is the dominant bro, and makes sense, because Trump, for all his flaws, he made his billions. They were his billions. You know what I mean? He had to make deals with the devil, but he made the deals, and he did the real estate deals, and he made the money. Whereas Epstein was just a front man, for the deep state. Which, and this I just saw. I'll show you this. This I just saw literally right before clicking go live, and just to reinforce the narrative that you're a hateful racist pedophile, and no evil that befalls you is too great, and everyone is completely justified in doing anything to you. Donald Trump on Tucker Carlson's interview with Nick Fuentes, the half Mexican homosexual who works for the CIA. You can't tell him who to interview. If he wants to interview Nick Fuentes, I don't know much about him, but if he wants to do it, get the word out, let him. Ultimately, people have to decide. This is a guy who's supposedly sending ICE, chasing all over, other the full-blood Mexicans, kicking them out of the country, warrantless fucking searches, drawing guns on fucking women in supermarket parking lots and shit. Face covered, federal Gestapo running around, let people decide. Just let people decide, So obviously they told him to say that, and he said it, but it's super interesting that they have him participating in this, and they are they're definitely where was the one? Oh shit, I don't have it. They're just mocking me, not just those still photos. Here's like two they jumped on this shit so fucking fast that they're not you have to know that this is organized at the highest level.
We gotta definitely write a song about how we do not diddle kids. Do not diddle kids, it's no good diddling kids.
There is no quicker way for people to think that you are diddling kids than by writing a song about it.
You gotta write a song that says, I wouldn't do it with anybody younger than my daughter. No, little kids gotta be big, older than my wife, older than my daughter, something like that.
So that's, I think it's Danny DeVito, and I think the show's called Always Sunny in Philadelphia. I don't know. I have a TV, so I don't know what it's from. And then there's this one, which is slightly modified, just like that one had the text. This one is slightly modified, but also just as slick.
What?
Jeffrey Epstein? Yeah, but before you judge me, know this. Yes, I was on the sex island, but only for the snorkeling. I didn't know anything about the kid stuff. No, look, 95% of what went on down there was not pedophilia.
Oh, yeah?
No, the other 5%, that sullied the whole operation.
It sullied the whole operation. So it's all a big joke. It's all in good fun, but it's really not. I've pointed out time and time again that predators love easy prey, and that the world works in a predator-prey dynamic. And you're going to see that over and over and over. I should only do one of these videos. I'll do one of them. But the way things are going to mix with serious stuff, with joking, with other people who were influenced or designed to corral you into. I just seen some military bro conservative dude, Ian Wenster or something, who was like, yeah, conservative army, blah blah blah, America, and then he's interviewing conservative homosexuals. It's fucking, you know where it always ends up. Once he builds up an audience, he tries to lead them down the path of rainbow destruction. But so here's a little history lesson, that the Epstein stuff is a fucking rerun.
We really glazed over how insanely bonkers it is that a place like Epstein's Island even existed. But what most people don't know is that it wasn't the first of its kind. Decades earlier, in the middle of Lake Michigan, a desolate island owned by a wealthy Detroit socialite became the subject of all sorts of wild conspiracy theories. And at first, a conspiracy theory is exactly what most people thought it was. While on the surface, it was just a summer camp for young boys, teaching them survivalist skills in nature, behind the scenes, these children were being flown to this island to be exploited, filmed, and traded among the men who sponsored the island's operations. The owner of North Fox Island, a man named Frank Sheldon, had purchased the land specifically for this purpose. As a matter of fact, the very first thing he did was built an airstrip on the island as a means to shuttle boys in and out. One of the men who sponsored the island was a former school teacher named Gerald Richards. He and Sheldon ran a nonprofit called Brother Paul's Children Mission. The organization was supposed to help underprivileged youth connect with nature, but upon their plane touching down on the landing strip, the boys would soon realize that that wasn't going to be the case. Now, it's a lot to get into, so much so that we had to make our podcast episode about this in 2 parts, because the owner of the island would eventually flee the country, making it extremely difficult to charge him with any involvement. The story disappeared from the news fairly quickly and was just dismissed as an urban legend. But North Fox Island was just a tiny piece in a much larger picture of child trafficking rings happening around the world. It wouldn't be until the early 2000s that more people began examining the evidence themselves, realizing just how extensive this operation truly was. North Fox Island has also been tied to a series of unsolved child murders committed by an unknown perpetrator known only as the Oakland County Child Killer. It's an awful lot to dive into, but if you're interested, you can check out my 2-part episode on this topic, or I can make a part 2 here.
All right, so North Fox Island was a pedo island and purchased specifically for that purpose. That chick's on Instagram, and you could just, if you just type in, like, you on Instagram and type in Fox Island, you'll see her account, and you can go deeper into that. But they're organized, you know, that this is, you know, a serious problem. She says that the who owned the island fled. He fled to the Netherlands, as she later says in another reel, and that, because the Netherlands at the time did not have an extradition treaty with the U.S. How the fuck you would know that? You know, I don't know. And then the school teacher named Richards, who actually went to jail or went to prison for pedophilia, for sexual abuse charges, and got out and became a magician. Was doing like magic tricks and stuff like that with his son. This is fucking forever, and people that run the fucking world. You can like it or not like it. She says, you know, she says they were brought there, they were abused, they were filmed, and then they were traded amongst the abusers. Predators love easy prey. That's your fucking reality. And you may from time to time hear insane fucking stories from people that are absolutely on the fucking, like, you know, homeless drug addict kids, and you would just dismiss it, but you didn't live through what they lived through. Anyway, but this goes on and on and on, and it's always a tough subject. Now, the only way you can get this stuff out is with humor. But, you know, you have comedians now. The only way you can talk about the subject, really, is a comedian. And I don't know who this comedian is, but he's got some red pills for you.
Erica Kirk knew Trump before she knew Charlie. She actually won Trump's Miss Arizona pageant. Her parents are both from military intelligence family. Her dad did Raytheon arms deals with Israel, probably unrelated. And Erica Kirk was part of running an orphanage in Romania where children went missing. Enough children for Romania to permanently ban the orphanage and permanently ban Erica Kirk. Do you know how up you gotta be to get banned in Romania? Andrew Tate is the mayor there. You really gotta push some boundaries. Mind you, this is when Epstein was still active, so I'll let you connect the dots. By the way, I'm not suicidal. For the record, I am quite happy, okay? You heard it here. But the weirdest thing about Erica Kirk, she met Charlie Kirk not on Christian Mingle. She went in to interview at his company, Turning Point USA. He said that he fell in love right away. Now, 4 years later, he's dead. And she has now inherited Turning Point USA. She's doing podcasts on it too. Like, I'm so excited. Like, to my future wife, please wait 2 months after I die before doing a podcast. 3 months if it's my own. Come on. When you look at how fast she moved on, and then you look at how it started and how it ended, how it started was not romance. How it started was her going in for a job, and how it ended was her getting a promotion. So I'm just saying. It was probably Tyler.
So the only people that are doing research on this and talking about it are comedians and fringe people. and they're not going to get the attention. The attention's going to go to Tucker Carlson, whose father was in the CIA, and Nick Fuentes, who is part of the real homosexual CIA. However, Erica Kirk and Turning Point USA, we're not quite done with that. Who they are is kind of like who you'd expect them to be.
This is a true story. I hope I'm saying his last name right. Thomas Kimono was a man who was factually put away into prison for abuse, molesting, lewd conduct toward young girls. By pretending, how he did this was he pretended that his cat was lost. I was 8 years old, living in Dana Point, California, when Thomas approached my friend and I to help him find his cat. He took us to a park behind my house and tried to molest me before I ran away. I was a key witness in his trial before he was sentenced to 8 years in prison. He molested multiple girls between 1990 and 1995. Now, you will notice that I am not saying allegedly because he went to prison for this. So this is not I'm not risking defamation here. She's not lying. Despite his conviction, despite having spent years in prison for these crimes, Rob McCoy, the pastor who makes my skin crawl, struck up thereafter and maintained a long friendship with Thomas Kimono across decades. Rob then decides that Kimono should be involved in the Calvary Chapel Church, and more specifically, that Kimono should have access to young children in a program called Home Fellowship, which put him inside the homes of children. And he almost got away with it until some mothers went online, remembered exactly what had happened, and raised hell about it in 2022. Now, in response to this being discovered, Rob McCoy did not apologize. No. That's not how this works. But he is going to host Thomas Kimono for a podcast episode on the Bryce Eddy Show. He's going to vent his frustration at the people who are up in arms about the placement of this man in close confine with young children without people recognizing that, okay, this guy has literally spent 8 years in prison for abuse.
You and I have been friends. There's been no issues. It's remarkable how you've served this community. I personally made the call that they can make fun of us and they can claim whatever they want to claim, but I wanted your family protected. So I pulled that, I guess it was a advertisement for the Home Fellowship, which we do for all the home fellowships.
So he's upset, and he goes on to talk about how people online who don't know the full story are digging stuff up, and like, this guy's really a good guy, despite the fact that the cops, as he said, found a footprint, a palm print, plus 11 out of 17 items that they were looking for in his home. You are free to pursue that conversation in its entirety. Like, we're trying to include as much as we can for the sake of this podcast without going too long. It's just incredible. Okay. The person who took the stand still remembers and emailed me, but somehow he's the victim, and Rob wants that to come across. He's annoyed that this has come up.
And that's the pastor that's involved with Turning Point USA. So there's a lot of fucking unpleasantness. And if you think what we're going to do is we're going to red pill people and we're going to farm outrage, then we're going to unify, and then we're going to do this and that. We're not going to do any of that. Nobody's going to do any of that shit. That's not going to happen. And the reason why that's not going to happen is because people know just how to control you. They really do know exactly how to control you. And when it gets, if they actually do feel any heat, this is the principle that's going to be applied.
I have a friend in the military who trains military dogs, Laura, and they only feed a military dog at night because a hungry dog is an obedient dog. Well, if we're not causing people to be hungry to work, then we're providing them with all the meals they need sitting at home. I'm completely with you, Laura. These benefits make absolutely no sense.
Okay, so they're crying about food stamps and this and that and the other. But what he says is a hungry dog's an obedient dog. And when they turn your money into worthless fucking paper or worthless tokens, and you're starving, you're going to do whatever the fuck they tell you to do. You're going to do whatever the fuck they tell you to do, because a hungry dog is an obedient dog. And What are they going to do with the economy? I don't fuck. At this point, it's a fucking free for all. Part of the reason, I said I went to drove to Virginia 7 times in 8 days, and probably if I would have worked Monday, I probably could have went 8 times. It's super fucking busy now. All of a sudden, it's super fucking busy, and that's very, very interesting to me. And one of the things that got lost in all of this, and the Fuente stuff, and his Trump dying of a fucking stroke. There was I don't have the interview. He did an interview with Laura Ingraham where he looked fucking good. He didn't look like he was gonna fucking die. So I was like, wait a minute, he doesn't look like he's gonna be dead in 6 months. He looked pretty good in the interview. I mean, old. Don't get me wrong, looked old, but he looked like a shadow of his former self. Saying stupid shit, but I was like, he doesn't look like he's dying. I don't know, dying, is he not dying? But in the meantime, this is going to be way more important for him, for the next president. For the next president, they've opened the door to something that's really going to have some fucking wild consequences. And this is they're covering it with red team, blue team, but this is fucking nuts.
Shutdown could end up decreasing fourth quarter economic growth by 2 whole percentage points. The Democrat shutdown made it extraordinarily difficult for economists, investors, and policymakers at the Federal Reserve to receive critical government data. The Democrats may have permanently damaged the federal statistical system, with October CPI and jobs reports likely never being released. And all of that economic data released will be permanently impaired, leaving our policymakers at the Fed flying blind at a critical period.
So, blue team fucked up the numbers for October, and we can never ever trust any economic data ever again. Are you fucking kidding me? The Fed can't, they don't know what numbers to trust because of the government shutdown, which was no shutdown. Some people didn't get paid, and some people didn't get food stamps, but everything else continued to work, and they continued to collect taxes. Nothing shut down. But now they're saying, "Well, listen, you got to let the Fed do whatever it wants to do because we can't trust the numbers anymore." That's fucking wild. That's pretty wild. They get away with that, and I think they're going to get away with that. We are in for some fucking wild times. Oh, now we're gonna. Okay, so the phone is frozen up. Let us refresh. Okay, we have refreshed, and that's a good thing. So, interestingly, though, the government can't. We can't tell what happened with the October this and the federal numbers that, but they happen to. The IMF, of course, it never sleeps, but they're now flagging currency risks as nations swap dollar loans into yuan. So people loving that Chinese currency, whether you're a Russian counterfeiter or just somebody holding a U.S. dollar loan. You know what? It might be a better deal to refinance that dollar loan with the Chinese money. That's pretty fucking interesting. I don't know how much that's going on, but if the IMF is getting involved, I'm assuming it's pretty big, big enough for them to make us think about it. Meanwhile, everyone's favorite counterfeiters, the Union of Soviet Socialist Republics or the Commonwealth of Independent States, is now tricking foreigners into fighting in Ukraine. There's the Bitcoin bros have the pig butchering scams where they promise you a job and then they lock you in a building and make you scam people out of their life savings. Well, guess what? The Russians promise black people, I don't know, access to white females in the Ukraine. I don't know. And then when they get there, they force them to go. They force them to go to the front lines and fight in the war. So, if you don't understand that there's no way to fucking fix this, you don't belong here. Now this was super interesting. I've mentioned this company before. I'm a fan of it. I have their stock. They just reported their third quarter earnings and they missed their number, and they have no revenue. They have literally no money coming in, and yet the stock price went up. So make of that what you will, but you usually, I realize we're in a new era now of we don't know the data. Usually when a company misses its expected earnings per share number, the stock dives. Aqua missed its number, and when I say missed, it had zero, and still the stock went up. Think about what that might mean. Think about exactly what that might mean. And part of that is this: Wall Street is headed towards always on overnight US trading spurred by Asian markets. That won't be for everyone. It's not spurred by Asian markets. It's spurred by the fact that Bitcoin trades 24/7. They'll, from most people, only be able to trade from 9 to 4. You'll have to have a special account with whatever, $250,000 or something in it in order to trade overnight. But they're rigging the game so that they continue to win forever, and you don't. So people will see stuff in the middle of the night and go, hey, XYZ stock is going through the roof. They'll buy it first thing in the morning at 9 o'clock, and then it'll dump. So whatever. You're in for some wild fucking Weimar fucking stuff with up and down, with pumps and dumps that fucking will make you will just go beyond what anyone can believe. However, what else are we going to talk about? This caught my eye because, and I have shit on Harvard University in the past, and will continue. And I know you're saying, well, James, you're a fucking 59-year-old dude living a one-bedroom lifestyle, and the Harvard guys are fucking privileged boys, or blah 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 blah. Yeah, but when they get it right, they get it right. And there are people, when you take away the perverted incentives, who they're smart people there. Not as smart as they think they are, but they're smart people there. And they can come to the right conclusions. I mentioned 2 months ago, I don't know how many months ago, that Harvard University had bought $106 million worth of the Bitcoin ETF. And I said, the reason, I said their algorithm or bot or whatever, some computer program tells them what to buy and they just buy it. And at the time I said, Harvard doesn't believe in Bitcoin. Harvard doesn't give a fucking shit about the ethos of Bitcoin or any of that. And I still don't think that they do. But the people at Harvard are smart enough to know what their own self-interest is. And this is important. This is where you have to know what what I'm trying to tell you is you need to know what your self-interest is. And so what does this have to do with Harvard? Well, this popped up over the weekend. The Bitcoin ETF becomes Harvard's top holding after a 257% stake increase. That means Bitcoin, which has been going sideways and slightly down all year, but Harvard University, their endowment, which is $1 billion endowment, now has, it's actually 25% of all of the money that Harvard has is invested in Bitcoin. They went from 106 million to like $297 million worth of Bitcoin. And this is Harvard University. So you have to ask yourself, and you could have all the criticisms I have of Harvard, you could have other criticisms. Why would they do that? Why would the smartest university and the smartest people or whatever, why the fuck would they do that? And you should sit and honestly answer that. And I don't know the answer, I don't know, doesn't fucking qualify. In SCFU University, I don't know is not a fucking answer. You are not allowed to say, I don't know. So you have to ask yourself, why are they doing that? Why would they do that? Why would they increase their holdings 257% until Bitcoin is their largest single investment at Harvard University? Ask yourself that and try and answer honestly. Try to answer honestly. The other thing you should ask, and I guess we finally got lucky blasting the Houthis, because the Houthis, but they've been quiet for months. They've signaled that they're going to stop the attacks on Israel and Red Sea shipping as long as the Gaza ceasefire, blah 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 blah. But it's my understanding that that we killed a whole bunch of, or Israel managed to get lucky and kill like 8 or 10 of the top people. So they may not have the personnel necessary to do what they used to do. And the other thing is, like, where's fucking Luigi Mangione? Where the fuck is this kid? His trial was supposed to start in October. We're halfway through fucking November. I haven't heard word one about it. We need that part of the circus. We need that part of the circus. And then what do we got? Because there's not enough circus. What do I want to do? What do I want to do? Okay, I'll tell you what. Here's, I guess, with Nick Fuentes, any of the alphabet parasites are going to take credit for this, but really, this dude is self-destructing.
If you're a young person and you can't afford to live here, then maybe you should not live here. I mean, that is a real thing. Yeah, I know that we've now grown up in a society that says that you deserve to live where you grew up, but the reality is that the history of America is almost literally the opposite of that. The history of America is you go to a place where there is opportunity. And if the opportunities are limited here and they're not changing, then you really should try to think about other places where you have better opportunities.
Why would we make a better country? You should just leave. I mean, this is what we need to be telling people. If you can't afford to live somewhere, it's not a problem with the cost of these things, the rent seeking, the price gouging, and the low wages. It's your fault for living here. Trump's America First policy was supposed to be prioritizing the American people, not only in diplomacy, but in immigration and in economic decisions. His supporters wanted a complete overhaul in H-1B, L-1, L-4, opt, and student.
Okay, so Ben Shapiro, who's has admittedly been whatever cultural capital he had was on its way out before, but it's 100% on its way out now. You know what I mean? It's one thing to play red team, blue team. It's another thing to publicly say the reason why you can't have any opportunity in supposedly the land of opportunity is your fault. So get the fuck out of America. Can you believe it? And people like Nick Fuentes are going to say, oh, I beat up Ben Shapiro. No, he fucking destroyed himself. He absolutely destroyed himself. And the end of this red team, blue team, or this phase of red team, blue team, because it'll respawn as something else after this cycle. The end of red team, blue team is, there's a guy, I don't know who this guy is. He's Dave something. I can just call him Dave the Jew. He gets traction. He talks to Tucker Carlson, and he's saying the type of things that were said, I don't know, fucking in 2016. He's saying them again, slightly updated, and he's saying it directly to Charlie Kirk's audience.
I mean, this talk about how, like, if you care about the holy sites in Israel, like, okay, sure. Obviously, Christians and Jews and Muslims have a connection to that land. But that doesn't mean we have to bomb Iran for Israel.
Who's saying that?
That doesn't. Well, we just bombed Iran. That was the first topic. Oh, okay. Okay. Anyway, it doesn't mean that we have to support Israel slaughtering people in Gaza. None of that has anything to do with the holy sites. And in fact, a lot of sites get destroyed when there's bombs flying. But listen, the real problem for America, if you want to even talk about like the Islam taking over America or taking over Europe, well, how did that happen? That happened because we completely destabilized the region, fighting war after war after war that did nothing but slaughter hundreds of thousands of people. And then our Western governments had the most insane open immigration policy that was basically suicidal. We're doing this to ourselves. We're $37 trillion in debt, and we're looking for another enemy to go fight. Since the collapse of the Soviet Union, we've spent $20 trillion on empire and wars. And you know what? We can't tax enough money to pay for it. We can't borrow enough money to pay for it. So what do? We print the money. And now you guys are coming out into the world and you're wondering why you're 6 figures in debt from college and you're getting a job at DoorDash and the average house goes for $800,000 because we've destroyed the currency chasing these monsters that were never any threat to our country.
So, ooh, wow, that's something only you have to be Dave the Jew to say. But listen, to his credit, he said it. We destroyed the currency, chasing monsters that were never a threat to us. That you're being blamed. He said we did it to ourselves. When he says we did it to ourselves, what irritates me about this is I didn't vote for that, right? Nobody voted for that. We didn't do it to ourselves. If you put it to a vote, should we go 20 trillion in debt post Cold War? The answer would be no. You know what I mean? We never would have borrowed that money. We never would have spent that much money on what we did spend it on. So when they say we did it to ourselves, it's the leadership that borrowed the money in our name and we have to pay it back. And now it's, of course, the debt is unrepayable unless they do, God knows what they're going to do with stable coins. But any system where I get to borrow the money and make you pay it back is inherently an unjust system. And it's sooner or later, it's going to go kinetic. It's not here in America yet, but it's coming. However, to our south, to our southern border, we have the nation state of Mexico, which has its first female president who is not Catholic. And you take a look at that side of the Rio Grande, and things look a little spicy. Riding over the assassination of a mayor in Mexico, some small town. Married guy with kids, spoke out against the cartel, said we got to end this stuff. We got to, let's make Mexico great again or whatever. Let's make Mexico again. The cartels, of course, killed him. People got upset and said to the president, "What are you going to do about the cartels?" And she said, "Nah, nothing. I'm not going to do anything." And at that point, the Mexican people realized their government is their problem. The government down there is the problem. The best friends of the cartels, and the cartels are going to kill them all and make life in Mexico even worse than it is for most Mexicans. And so the youth rioted. I don't know that it's going to change anything, but this is the first Jewish president of Mexico getting some civil unrest, and that's because of the choices they made. The people of Mexico it's not obvious enough from that video, the people of Mexico don't want drug dealers running their country and the government complicit, but they don't know how to change it. And even though, the mechanism is fairly obvious, I don't know why people are not going to do it. They're just not going to do it. Harvard will do it. Some of us crazy people will do it. People like me, crazy people like me will do it. But the rest of you are going to have to be forced into it. And I have to be forced into it. So anyway, with that, where are we? 40 minutes into the chill stream. You could smash up the like button. Fingers crossed, by the way. I don't know what happened last week on the Rumble stream. It didn't stream to Rumble, even though I set it up the way I always do. And then I had to download the thing and download the show onto my phone and then re-upload it to Rumble as a recorded video. So fingers crossed that did not happen this week. We didn't boomer tech it twice in a row, because that would suck. But yeah, you need to understand that all of this stuff is going to play out the way it's going to fucking play out. And be aware that they're definitely going to try and tag you with being a racist and a pedo. And, keep your head on a swivel, especially when the warm weather comes in. Because they're setting you up. They're lining you up for this, as bad or worse than the first Trump fucking presidency. So be aware and try to avoid situations where you're going to end up being in the jackpot. And then with that, what else? Everyone really ultimately comes around to my way of thinking, although this guy doesn't say it. Our friend, our one and only, the one and only comes to Bears, bro, making the same point that I make just about every week.
President Trump just proposed the 50-year mortgage. But what does that look like in practice? Let's say you took out a $300,000 mortgage at 6% fixed interest. Over a 30-year term, your monthly payment would be $1,800 a month. Over 50 years, your payment would be $1,580 a month. Only $220 less per month. But over 30 years, where you would pay $347,000 in interest payments, over 50 years, you would pay $650,000 in interest payments, bringing the final amount to pay back your loan over a 30-year mortgage from $650,000 over 30 years to $950,000 to pay back your $300,000 loan over 50 years, which is the equivalent to putting a Band-Aid on a gaping bullet wound. But the reason they're doing this is there is a cost of living crisis in America, and they don't want to address the real issue. Because the cause of this crisis goes back to 1913 with the passage of the Federal Reserve Act, because it not only gave a small group of powerful bankers a monopoly over the printing of the dollar, but it established the practices of fiat currency, which is money backed by nothing, and fractional reserve banking, which allows the banks to lend out money that they don't actually have. And this started the cycle of wealth coming from debt rather than production. And then in 1965, they announced the Great Society, which established government-insured mortgages. And they framed this as a war on poverty. But in reality, it's the reason why so many are in poverty today. Because by creating an endless supply of loans for housing, they used debt to guarantee that the dollar cost of housing would go up, which was really good for the boomers who purchased here, but really bad for their grandkids. To the point where it cost $700,000 to get an 1,100 square foot starter home on Long Island, which is so expensive that young people can't afford to buy it even with a mortgage. But they don't want to address the real issue because the inflated values of all of these houses would collapse. And this is why I write books on the history of the banking system, and to teach young people to make money. And I teach courses on real history, because the Ponzi scheme that started in 1913 is falling apart. And the only way our kids have a real chance is if they're taught the truth. Check out my private homeschool community. And Cubs to Bears, books. ClassicalLearner.com.
That's our man. Our man in the educational system comes to bears, bro. You can teach kids how to make money. That's a good idea. But the currency they use becomes Venezuelan, or becomes like the Argentine peso, or becomes like the Lebanese lira, or becomes like the Hungarian pengu or the Weimar Deutschmark. Those lessons will be lost. The currency doesn't have value. You're not going to be incentivized to make money or do something productive. That's the stuff. That's what he's not quite saying. And as I pointed out, putting a different group of scumbags in charge of the money printer is not the solution. You need to come up with a better solution than that. Everybody knows I'm a Bitcoin guy, and if you think Bitcoin sucks, great. Congratulations. I'd love to hear your alternative. Like, what's better? What do you have that's a better idea? What is a better idea? You know, because as far as I know, the ideas are, let's go back to gold and silver discs, which is ridiculous. Not going to happen. Isn't happening anywhere on the face of the earth. Let's put different faces on different colored pieces of paper, and pinky swear not to print too many of them. You know, give the keys to the money printer to the guy, and then say, "Cross your heart, hope to die, stick a needle in my eye. I promise I won't print too much," or something. I don't know what to, like. What is your better idea? You don't have. And so this circumstance is going to play out. It's going to play out until it's done. But for real, there will still be in America. There will still be, you know, a country. But the question is, will you have resources and the ability to do something, or will you not have resources and the ability to do something? And that's the question you have to ask yourself, and the question you have to answer for yourself. For Harvard University, you know, they managed to figure it out. I managed to figure it out too. Hopefully you've come to the same conclusion, and all this other stuff is not as important. Not as important as people make it out to be. There's a bunch of stuff I'm sure I missed over the week, but I don't have a TV, so I don't know. Like, you know, I don't even know what the fuck goes on, which is beautiful. But I sometimes probably miss enormous things. But that's the nature of having. That's the nature of having the freedom of not being in front of Talmud vision, not being in front of Talmud vision. What'll I do? You know, I'll cover it up like this. I got this in the mail. I don't know if you guys get one of these. This is the International Fellowship of Christians and Jews. And it says, urgent, help feed elderly Jews struggling to survive this Thanksgiving. Just 83 cents a day can help fill a pantry and feed a Holocaust survivor for a month. I guess as a Holocaust survivor, 83 cents a month, that's pretty good. I mean, that's a hell of a bargain. But they're pretty skinny anyway. I don't know if we can send them. We could put someone together and send them some poisoned turkeys. That would be an idea. I don't really think it's legal, but if it were legal, I would donate a poisoned turkey, at least one. Who did I donate money to? I donate money to this kid. This is a kid who heckled Dave Portnoy, and he got arrested. And there's a Give, Send, Go fundraiser for him, and so I sent him some money because the kid needs a lawyer, and you got some extra money. You want to fight Zog, you know, then send that kid $20. Or whatever you can send. Anyway, with that, where are we at? 49 minutes, 51 seconds. Pretty much covered everything I want to cover. You know, it all comes down to this. It all comes down to what you really need to know versus the huge amount of stuff in your head that is completely useless. And it's a bitter, it's got to be bitter and difficult to realize that everything you think you know is basically useless, that all of everything you made efforts towards in your entire life did nothing to end debt slavery. Nothing. Right? The entire world lives in debt slavery and just craves more of it, more dollars created out of thin air, creating more debt, and on and on and on. And you look around and you think this world's a fucking lunatic asylum. And it most certainly is. And it's only going to get worse. America is at its peak. This coming 4th of July, 2026, America's 250th anniversary. We will have reached peak America, and it will be downhill from there. How quickly downhill, I don't know. But the world will probably be a better place over time when that happens. But until that happens, we got some choices to make, and we want to be in a better position when that happens than we are today, right? At least I think we do. At least I do, right? And then come a day when stuff like this will just be in the history books, and it won't be remembered anymore. It won't be remembered anymore. Anyway, with that, 51 minutes, 40 seconds, pretty much covered everything I want to cover. If you've been here, because I've seen a couple of people lurking, they're in and out, they're either popping in and out, stream sniping maybe, or whatever. I don't know if they still do that, or whatever. But in the meantime, smash up the like button. Smash the like button. Smash up the like button. And to the lurkers, whether you smash the like button or not, thanks for stopping by, guys. And I'll talk to you again next week.